Hello friends, welcome to the Kombucha Quick Start Brewing Guide, where I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to know about starting your kombucha brewing journey at home, which for me happened around 5 years ago. And before I was brewing kombucha at home, well, I was buying it in the stores. This is when kombucha was getting more popular. I started hearing about it. I had to try it out. And I really enjoyed it. I liked the health benefits. It made me feel great. I liked all the different flavors. I really liked the taste. But the problem was, it was very expensive. You know, a bottle of kombucha in the store probably costs around I've seen it up to $8 for specialty kombuchas in New York. Plus, I just love food projects at home, different fermentation projects. So what happened was, one of my friends, Farmer John, came over my house and he brought with him basically just a mason jar full of kombucha. It wasn't even that great. It wasn't carbonated. I think he flavored it with hibiscus, but to be honest, that's all I needed. My mind was blown that he was actually brewing this stuff at home. He had the knowledge to brew kombucha from scratch, and that's all I needed to start my journey. And I started learning how to make it, experimenting with different brewing processes. And I got really efficient and really good at brewing kombucha, and I became obsessed with brewing kombucha at home. Being able to have bottles and bottles of kombucha for probably 1/10 of the store-bought stuff was a great feeling. Not to mention, I thought it tasted a lot better than the store-bought stuff. The quality you get from making it in small batches at home will trump the store-bought stuff any day of the week. And since I was so inspired by the drink, I wanted to spread that inspiration to other people. So I started putting out some videos on my YouTube channel, Pro Home Cooks, and those videos ended up inspiring thousands of people, and they racked up millions of hits. And it was so great to see so many people brewing kombucha at home, but I still was getting a lot of the same questions over and over again on brewing kombucha, a lot of the same concerns. And that's why I created this quick start guide, to answer all of those concerns and get you in a great place in your kombucha brewing career. And one of the #1 questions I get is about starting up brewing at home. How much is it going to cost me to get the supplies, to get the ingredients, and also how long is it going to take me to brew kombucha? And do I have enough space to brew kombucha? So that's what video 1 of the Quick Start Guide is going to be all about. I'm going to answer your questions on starting up your kombucha brewing game. So one of the main reasons I got into kombucha brewing was because it wasn't so complex to start up. Whereas beer making, something I really wanted to do, just felt super overwhelming. You can see some beer making equipment up here, all types of pipes and tubes and different pots, different sizes. Whereas kombucha brewing is like simple beer making. You need a vessel for fermentation, you need a little cloth to cover your vessel, you need a SCOBY, which I'll cover later, or you can do it from a store-bought kombucha. You can grow your own SCOBY completely from scratch. So the costs are pretty minimal. I actually have a video coming up later where I'll go into depth on all of the equipment I use and how you can start up for $50, which is really not that much money when you consider brewing one batch of kombucha. It's gonna pay off your initial startup fee right away. You know, one of these things costs $5. So when you brew a batch of, 10 at a time, that's $50 right there. Boom, you paid off your entire startup fee. Now, the other thing that's great about kombucha is you only need 3 ingredients to make this stuff. What kombucha is a fermented tea, and the yeast and bacteria in the SCOBY feed off the tea and feed off the sugar in the tea. So basically you're just making a sweet tea, which requires tea bags and it requires sugar and water, of course, and then whatever you want to flavor your kombucha with. So the startup ingredients to brew your first batch is only going to cost you a few dollars, which is great. And you can use any tea you want, which we'll be covering later as well, an in-depth guide into all of the various teas that you can use for brewing kombucha at home. So I'm not sure if you saw my recent video on the Pro Home Cooks YouTube channel, but what I did was challenge myself to see if I could brew 10 homemade kombuchas, all for the price of one store-bought kombucha. So this thing cost me $3.85. Again, they're gonna cost anywhere from $3 to $7 depending on where you live, depending on the brand. And in the video, I broke down all of the ingredients from growing a SCOBY from scratch to brewing your first batch to flavoring your first batch and bottle carbonating. And all of the ingredients added up to $3.50 for 10 homemade kombuchas. So think about the savings there. After you invest in the initial equipment, which isn't that expensive, you can brew 10 bottles for $3.50. 10 bottles from the store would cost you at least $50, so that adds up quick. You can see how you can start saving thousands and thousands of dollars on kombucha every year if you drink a lot of kombucha, which I was doing. I was drinking way too much kombucha to be buying this stuff in the store every time. So another concern I see a lot is about the timing to make kombucha. How long is this gonna take me? I get it, you're busy, maybe you work, maybe you go to school, and you think you don't have time to brew kombucha at home. And you know, most fermentation projects, yes, they take a long amount of time to actually make them from start to finish. But what I love about kombucha is that when you add up the actual time that you're doing things, it's very minimal. So really it's just one simple step at a time that takes a few minutes, and then there's just time in between that you're doing whatever you want to do. You're going on with your life, and then at the end you have a delicious fermented beverage. So you can see in this video, if we break down the actual amount of time to brew kombucha, most of it is just boiling and steeping tea. So the first step, this takes around 5 minutes. You boil, you steep tea, and then you add your SCOBY, you add your liquid to that, and then you let that hang out and ferment for 7 to 10 days. And then after that, it's just flavoring your kombucha. So you're chopping up some ingredients, you're putting them in the bottles, maybe that takes 10 minutes, and then you pour over your fermented kombucha, and which is another reason I love making kombucha at home. I can fit it into my schedule very easily. So I do one step, and then I go back to cooking something else. I do another step, and then I'm on to something else in my life. I'm watching TV or doing some work. So it's really easy to fit kombucha brewing into your daily routine. So I hope that answered a few of your startup questions on brewing kombucha. And again, I'm gonna be guiding you along on the entire kombucha brewing process, really going into depth on how to brew this wonderful elixir of life, getting into carbonation, getting into the different flavors, which is one of the best parts about kombucha. It's the most culinary forward drink that you can make at home. And what that means is you can really get creative with this drink. It's not just a fermented tea. You can start getting wild with the flavor combinations, the different types of tea, and just start experimenting with this kombucha fermentation. And it makes it addictive as well. I've been brewing for 5 years and I'm still learning. I'm still getting better, still experimenting with different types of flavors. So we're gonna cover all of that in depth in upcoming videos. So make sure you're on the lookout for that next email for part 2, because you're really gonna wanna follow along on this entire journey to learn everything you need to know about starting up your kombucha brewing game. Not just brewing kombucha once at home, but really making this a practice in your life, saving a ton of money and being able to have this healthy beverage that's tasty on tap. So I'll see you soon for part 2.